Sorry, I just unmuted. Sorry, at the moment, we have possibly harsh slides on the screen. I was under the understanding that you would be sharing them from your end.
Oh yeah, that's no problem at all. But I just have to look it up now. We have.
Yes, that's fine. Sorry. I thought that Dr. Scow was sharing them from his end. Sorry.
Oh, I see. No, don't worry. If people can just bear with us while I open these up.
Sorry.
I can share the screen, but it will just take a little while. People can bear with us.
I'd like to say that it's an absolute honour that you have been able to be so generous to give your time to support Bangladesh at a time of great challenge. Bangladesh is currently in a national lockdown, so there are very, very serious issues, and it's very, very difficult to access accurate information on the nature of long COVID, what we know about it, and what we can do to support people. So we really very much appreciate your time and support for this
Yes, we can see your slide now.
Thank you for giving me 2 minutes to share my screen. So just to confirm that you can now see my first slide.
Yes, we can see your slide 1.
Fantastic. Okay, so all right. So first to say that I'm actually not a practicing clinician anymore. I'm a full-time academic, but I have been working on the topic of long COVID for more than a year now. And my team published this paper in the British Medical Journal last August, and this was when long COVID was a very new syndrome. It's quite a simple paper. You're going to be hearing a lot more detail from other speakers, but actually this paper continues to be widely accessed. I think maybe because it is quite simple and straightforward. I worked with a respiratory physician, some family medicine clinicians, physiotherapists, and a cardiologist. And one of the things that we were struck by when we wrote this early BMJ paper was the definitions. Acute COVID was this illness that was supposed to get better quite quickly, and then we had post-acute COVID, which was symptoms persisting after a month, and chronic COVID persisting after 3 months. There's another paper out more recently on post-acute COVID-19 syndrome, which I think other speakers are going to speak more about, but this again is a more detailed and more recent review article. If we go right back to the beginning, the question of how to make the diagnosis of long COVID, this was very controversial initially. Do you need a positive swab? Can you only make the diagnosis in patients who have been admitted to hospital? In patients who have evidence of organ damage? Or can you make the diagnosis in anyone who feels unwell? That was very controversial initially, but it is now agreed internationally. Long COVID can be diagnosed clinically. It occurs in people who were not admitted to hospital. Of course, it can occur in people who were admitted to hospital as well. We now know that COVID-19 is a changing disease. More than a year ago, we thought it was a disease of the lungs, which lasted about 2 weeks, and then you either died or got better. We now know that this is a multi-system endothelial disease. It affects the microvasculature of probably every organ, particularly, as you can see in this picture, the lungs, the heart, the brain, the kidneys, and the blood vessels. So even if you don't know the detail of this, which I don't, you can see that it's a multi-system disease. The incidence of long COVID is very, very controversial. Scientists don't agree on it. Some published surveys are suggesting that if you have 100 people diagnosed with acute COVID-19, about 2/3 of them, 65, will be better by 4 weeks, 90% will be better by 8 weeks, and 99% will either be better or getting better by 12 weeks. Now, your previous speaker just presented data from Bangladesh that suggested 16% of Bangladeshis with COVID symptoms have still got some symptoms at 12 weeks. So these estimates that were published are probably underestimated. Patients say it is much more common than the literature suggests. We in the UK have thousands, hundreds of thousands. In fact, the latest estimate is 1 million people in the UK, of a population of about 60 million with long COVID. So it's a major burden on the health system. And as your previous speaker said, it affects healthcare workers disproportionately. So we also have a workforce problem here, that many of your doctors, your nurses, your porters, your cleaners are unwell for a very long time. Now, one of the things that my team did was we interviewed people with long COVID. We asked them to tell us their story, and we also used the patient stories to try and draw quality principles for long COVID services. And these illness narratives, as we call them, I'm just going to summarize very briefly. They talked about something called lung burn, a sort of aching feeling in the chest, along with breathlessness, along with altered breathing, and brain fog, that sensation you can't think properly. Patients also complained that nobody believes them. Even their friends didn't believe that this existed. There weren't clear care pathways at the time that we did this study, and the services were fragmented. Our findings align with a lot of other surveys of long COVID, and I was interested that the data from Bangladesh that we just saw very much supports what is going on elsewhere in the world. It's predominantly fatigue, breathlessness, some urticaria, angioedema, that sort of very allergic type symptomatology, and gastrointestinal symptoms, and also intermittent tachycardia, which is why these patients are often misdiagnosed as having anxiety. Here is a very early paper from the early Italian work, actually, comparing on the left side of this graph the prevalence of symptoms in the acute phase of COVID-19, and on the right-hand side the prevalence in the more chronic phase. And you can see here that some symptoms are very common, particularly fatigue and breathlessness, or dyspnea, but there are other symptoms such as cough, which are much commoner and myalgia much commoner in the acute phase. So long COVID isn't just acute COVID existing. Here is one of several lists that have been put forward by the World Health Organization for case reporting of long COVID. And I've put this up to emphasize that the WHO is particularly interested in functional impairment. The kinds of questions we ask patients are things like, do you have difficulty learning a new task? Do you have difficulty washing your whole body? Do you have difficulty maintaining a friendship? So these are things that interfere in a very profound way with people being able to live an independent life, hold down a job, look after their kids, that kind of challenge. So it's a very pervasive illness. Now here's a question, maybe some of the other speakers will pick up on this later in this conference. Is it one disease or two? I've described to you a syndrome of prolonged recovery characterized by fatigue and lung burn and brain fog. And then there's this other thing, which is about the inside of your blood vessels, these thromboembolic complications, myocarditis, pulmonary embolus, stroke, all this kind of thing. And most people with long COVID do not get these major complications on the right-hand side. So the question is this a continuum, or are these two different diseases or different manifestations? And we don't know for sure yet. But what I would say is we need to remember the red flags. If the patient has chest pain, if they have hypoxia at rest or desaturation in their auxiliary breathings on exercise, then we may be starting to think about these really very alarming complications rather than just treating the patients as someone who needs a prolonged recovery. Another paper my team produced was a study on doctors and nurses and physiotherapists and other healthcare workers who had long COVID, and we got together with them and they helped us redesign services and develop some quality principles for services for people with long COVID. And we call this ABCDEF. What they wanted was access to services for everyone affected, not just the lucky few. They wanted to reduce the burden on the patient, because the patient, when they've got brain fog and fatigue, they are not well enough to keep going back to the doctor and chasing up follow-ups and going and having blood tests. We need a sort of one-stop shop, which makes it easier for the patient. They wanted one clinician to take clinical responsibility and provide continuity of care. Perhaps that's the general practitioner, perhaps it's a physiotherapist in a rehab clinic, but they wanted one person to understand what they were going through. They wanted a multidisciplinary approach to rehabilitation. They wanted evidence-based standards, so there was consistency of care, and there is now in the UK a nice stuff like National Institute of Health Clinical Excellence. And finally, they wanted further research, especially, said the patients, please count us because you're underestimating the prevalence of this condition. So which paradigm should we use to think about long COVID? Of course, it's entirely appropriate to use a biomedical paradigm to think about this as a medical condition, to develop and test drugs to treat it. It is also relevant to use a rehabilitation paradigm. Patients have been very sick. We now need to rehabilitate them with a gradual increase in exercise with some cognitive psychological support. The third potential paradigm is a relationship-based care paradigm. I've put here the clinician as a witness to suffering. This is what didn't happen in the early months of long COVID. People were saying nobody believes me, to simply say, I believe it was the sick, I'm sorry you're unwell, I empathize, and to encourage the patient in their convalescence. And finally, more radically, for the politically inclined of you, perhaps a critical race theory paradigm, addressing things like discrimination, poverty, and social exclusion because of the socio-demographic patterning of COVID symptoms. I've co-authored a paper in the American Journal of That Quarterly on this. It's quite an interesting area to explore. Now, most people with long COVID are going to get better, and if they are not particularly badly affected, self-management can be entirely appropriate. Rest and recuperation, and diet, possibly use of online self-management resources, information, and a paced return to work and their other activities. In terms of the patient who needs some medical input, but who's progressing well, perhaps the most important thing is listening to the story, carefully clinically assessing the patient to exclude other diagnoses, managing coexisting conditions, for example, making sure that diabetes is appropriately managed. I trained and worked as a diabetologist before I was a primary care clinician. Poorly controlled diabetes makes everyone feel wrong, so let's not forget that. Be alert for the rare complications. Testing is necessary, but not everybody needs a full body scan. And referral if needed.
Seriously?
The more specialist assessment and management of the patient, and I think you will hear a lot more about this from other speakers, a blood panel, lung function tests if breathing problems are dominant, personalised assessment of breathing and personal plan for rehabilitating the breathing can be very useful, along with a supervised return to activity. We're doing a lot of this now in clinics in the UK, and people are making great progress. Another thing that we do a lot of in the UK, if patients' oxygen levels are low, either at rest or on exercise, they are given an oximeter at home, and then they have this thing called virtual ward support, where they get a telephone call every day to ask what their readings are and talk through whether or not they need any further investigation. In the UK, in general, we repeat chest x-rays at 12 weeks, depending on the indication. I just want to talk very briefly about two syndromes which are now coming into the literature, and I think you may have some people who will talk about these later. One is dysautonomia, which is this cluster of symptoms. I put inappropriate tachycardia, pre-syncope syndrome, patient feels rather faint, severe fatigue, loss of concentration, cold peripheries, the COVID toes, and this is thought to be due, as the name implies, to some kind of upset of the autonomic nervous system. It's this package of symptoms that was initially dismissed as anxiety is very likely to have an organic basis. The other one is Martha cell deactivation syndrome with the urticaria, the heartburn, cramps, and a lot of sleep disturbance, possibly a low-grade fever. There are no formally approved treatments. There haven't been any randomized trials, but doctors with long COVID in the UK are very keen on what they call dual histamine blockade, the H1 and H2 blockade, with these two drugs both beginning with F, fexofenadine and famotidine. There's quite a lot of informal self-management by patients. You can actually buy both of these drugs over the counter in the UK, but we await the results of randomized trials with great interest there. So in summary, we've been recommending a tiered approach, going from the bottom, support self-management through the primary care management, and then some patients, but not all, will need more specialist assessment and rehabilitation. The communication across the system, of course, is crucial. I gave a talk on long COVID a few weeks ago, and I asked on Twitter, on social media, some unanswered questions. What else do you want to know about? So in addition to the topics I covered, these are the things that people wanted to know. The effective vaccine is a vaccination going to cure my long COVID or make it worse. What about nutritional supplements, other non-drug therapies? We don't know the answer to that yet. We don't know much about long COVID in children. We don't know how long it's going to last. It's a new disease. And all sorts of questions about supporting communities affected by long COVID, when a high proportion of breadwinners in the community are affected. So that's the end of my talk. I hope it came through technically okay. If there's any problems, we can re-record it and post it on YouTube later. So thank you very much for having me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you, Professor Dr. James. আমাদের সায়েন্টিফিক সেশনের মাঝখানে একটু ইন্টারাপশন করছি, এটার জন্য আমরা দুঃখিত। এটা হচ্ছে আমাদের সামাজিক দূরত্ব মেইনটেইন করে আমাদের প্রথম সেশন শেষ করতে গেলে আমরা যদি এভাবে চলি তাহলে আমাদের একটু প্রবলেম হচ্ছে। এ পর্যায়ে আমি বিশেষভাবে অনুরোধ করছি বাংলাদেশ ফিজিওথেরাপি অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের সম্মানিত সভাপতি এবং সম্মানিত সাধারণ সম্পাদককে আমাদের আমন্ত্রিত গেস্টদেরকে উপরে নিয়ে আসার জন্য। আমি নাম ঘোষণা করছি ডক্টর এনামুর রহমান কম্পি, মাননীয় প্রতিমন্ত্রী গ্রামীণ দুর্যোগ ব্যবস্থাপনা মন্ত্রণালয়, সাকিবুজ্জামান শেখের কম্পি, মাগুরা 1, ডক্টর বিজ্ঞান বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের বিভাগীয় মন্ত্রী ডক্টর মোহাম্মদ আনোয়ার হোসেন, Dr. Bashir Muhammad Bashir, Department of Rehabilitation, PSMU, Professor Dr. Muhammad Sayyid Hashim, please come to the dais. মাননীয় সভাপতি এবং সেক্রেটারি মহোদয়কে বিশেষভাবে অনুরোধ করব তারা গেস্টদেরকে তাদের আসনে ঠিকভাবে বসিয়ে দেওয়ার জন্য। আমি বাংলাদেশ সম্মুক্ত বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের সায়েন্স এন্ড টেকনোলজি ফ্যাকাল্টির সম্মানিত ডিন ডক্টর রোমান স্যারকে স্টেজে আসার জন্য বিশেষভাবে অনুরোধ করছি। আর অল্প কিছুক্ষণের মধ্যে আমরা আমাদের আজকের এই প্রোগ্রামের যে রিসার্চটি নিয়ে বেসিক্যালি একটা কথা হচ্ছে লং কোভিড, আমাদের সম্মানিত মেজর শশীর রহমান স্যারকে ডিক্লেয়ার করলেন এবং সেই প্রেজেন্টেশনটি অল্প কিছুক্ষণের মধ্যে এবং আমি সিনিয়র পেশাজীবী চিকিৎসক তাদেরকে রিকোয়েস্ট করবো আপনারা সামনে সিটে এসে এখন বসতে পারেন। সামাজিক দূরত্ব মেনটেন করে আমাদের প্রোগ্রাম করতে হবে, এই বিষয়টি আমাদের মাথায় রাখতে হবে। যে কারণে প্রোগ্রামের মাঝখানে একটু ইন্টারাপশন করার জন্য বিশেষভাবে দুঃখ প্রকাশ করছি। ধন্যবাদ সবাইকে।
Thank you very much. Before going to announce the next subject, I must thank Professor Trish Bilbao. You've heard, she presented a very scholastic presentation on the subject. She mentioned the long COVID. It is a persistent symptom. It is not one or two disease. It is the syndrome. You heard, he studied on 114 cases and he experienced so many long COVID cases. So when goes to our country, this has been really a burden for the nation and we'll have to be very cautious about the long COVID. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker will be Professor Dr. Muhammad Shakir, FRCP UK. He is the Director Neuro Rehabilitation, East Kent University Hospital. He is the Director Kent Brain Injury Foundation UK, and also he is the visiting Professor Neuro Rehabilitation, Joshua University of Science and Technology. He will speak on long COVID, a multinational research project on long COVID in Bangladesh. Now I call upon Professor Dr. Shakir to present his topic. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thanks for your kind words, my Major General Bashir Rahman. I will again say thanks to our chief guest, Dr. Dipu Modi, and distinguished honorable MPs from Bangladesh Parliament and Baroness Dean from House of Lords, JK. So most of the panel members have arrived for a panel discussion, and it was a pleasure to listen to Fisher Firhouse from Oxford. I will quickly go through a particular study that we have done in Bangladesh regarding Bangladesh. So first of all, I would just like to point out who I am. Can you go back to slide 1, please? Okay. So I work mainly in the hospital, leading a clinical service of neurorehabilitation in University Hospital, also an academic in the University of Kent. and charity campaign foundation. And so my honorable vice Dr. Professor Anwar, I still haven't got the logo, so I can put the just logo there. Slide 2, please. Okay, yeah. It's better now? Yeah. Okay, so this is my clinical team, team leaders in the rehabilitation gardens, and I cover this southeast of England with a population of about 1 million. You go to the next slide, please. When COVID started, we formed a core research team to not just to survive, but to thrive and develop knowledge. For that, we developed a multidisciplinary, multi-organizational, diverse team. So diverse with each team. We have robotic surgeons of prostate, surgeons on bladder, and professor of neuropsychology, professor of neuropsychiatry. And we have been doing some research projects in relation to COVID in Kent, England. Next slide, please. And then gradually by summer, this issue of long COVID started to come about. But I can't see the slides from here. Okay. So Professor Trisha has explained this the definitions and the controversy and the disagreements that were raging in those days of development. But I will not repeat all the things that Professor Trisha has said. What became clear that survival from a life-threatening COVID is not equal to recovery. There are some lingering symptoms and disability. That these are not made up, this is real, genuine, but it was quite difficult to make sense of it. So what happened is, because of the social media, democratization of science, gradually patients started to call this condition as long COVID, and some people have started calling it long haul COVID. That's a long journey to recovery. So this is one of the rare examples where a name of a medical condition came from the patients, long COVID. That you suffer for a month or so, and then some problems continue. I won't go into details, except one point that Dr. Trisha has mentioned, that the diagnosis is clinical. It's a medical doctor has to make the diagnosis based on the clinical features, past and present. So you don't need any clinical, any laboratory tests or scans to make a diagnosis. This is clinical diagnosis. Move on, please. So this is just to recap for people who are not fully medical or clinical, that we can have this 4 system within the journey of COVID. You have acute COVID when you have the diagnosis to begin with, and then post-COVID. Post-COVID could be a few weeks and then a few months. So within that, categorization has started to develop. Post-COVID from 4 weeks to 12 weeks, and beyond 12 weeks, beyond 3 months, is long COVID. Move on, please. This is just for the clinicians, that this is the seminal paper from Nature, which is open access available, and I would really request all the clinicians to read through this, and also the policymakers to read through this, which actually showed that it is a serious problem, even for people who have COVID but did not require to be admitted in a hospital. Remember, even in Western world, chance of or the need for hospitalization is about 1 to 4%. So vast majority of COVID patients will actually not go to the hospital. And those people who did not require to be hospitalized is them who are having problems. So you can already guess, we're talking about millions of people who might have this. And the people who actually needed hospitalization for COVID, they started to develop new onset kidney disease, new onset diabetes, new onset heart disease, and new onset lung disease. We're talking about millions of new patients coming up, lots and lots of new patients. So we need to be aware that another new pandemic is coming after the current pandemic. The pandemic of COVID will be followed up by long COVID, new different kinds of pandemic. Move on, please. So this clear graphics show the natural history of the condition. What I just said that in the beginning for about 2 weeks you have the virus within you, no symptoms, and then for about 2 to 4 weeks you have the COVID, and after 4 weeks post-COVID symptoms started, and after 12 weeks long COVID starts, and within the COVID and post-COVID, various systems will be affected. Nervous system, brain, spinal cord, lungs, heart, kidney, blood vessel, clots, and hair loss. And within the post-COVID, a group of symptoms, which I will go into more details. But fatigue seems to be the key problem. Next slide, please. So just about 2 to 3 weeks ago, the largest report on long COVID came out in United Kingdom, where they tried to establish how big is the problem of long COVID. Next slide, please. And that shows a dramatic figure that in the UK, the estimate is there will be 11 lakh, 1.1 million people with long COVID, not COVID, long COVID. And surprisingly, it's the females who will have more of it. I'm sure you know that COVID affects men more than women. In Bangladesh, I think the ratio is almost 7 to 3. For 7 men, 3 women. Whereas long COVID seems to affect women, and mainly young women. So after this, it's now established that the Swedish, the Americans, they all have started noticing it, but the British have actually done the large study. But the good news is, next slide, please. Okay, I just want to just make a point, that same point, that the females are more, and it's the young people who seem to be more. Next slide. And they establish this point by showing those symptoms: fatigue, sleep problem, appetite problem, anosmia, smell issue, pain in the skin, muscles, all these things. It's actually different to people who have the diagnosis of COVID in the past compared to general population. So these symptoms in the general population are this, whereas a large number of COVID patients will have those symptoms. So this is not just a coincidence. Next slide, please. And it shows in the British study that there's a huge number of people whose life and activities of daily living is affected to seriously, and I'll get back to this in a way, that these are really disabling. Move on. So our Kent co-research team expanded by the support from CRP and JUST to include these 6 countries to form a large group. And within this group, there's no way I can mention all the names. I'll just mention 2 who will be speaking immediately after me. One is Professor Karen Saunders from UK. She will speak a little bit, and Professor Walton will speak from Pennsylvania. And as usual, behind the screen workers are Firoz Amran. They're doing a lot of work, and we get inspiration from Dr. Anwar. Anyway, there is a large number of people working out of these 6 countries. Move on, please. We have concluded 4 studies just for Bangladesh. One is to find knowledge, attitude, and fear of COVID-19 during the rapid rise in Bangladesh last year, and this has been published along with the British studies in PLOS One, which is a policy making journal in Europe and England. And also, how did people cope with this pandemic in the first wave? And this sort of information will help formulate health policy to support. To give an example, in New York, there was a dramatic sale of alcohols during the first wave. So that is a wrong way of coping. So there's a lot of literature. How do you cope with a disaster? Positively, negatively, belief system, this and that. And also, because we are interested in spinal cord injury, of course, we are doing a study of spinal cord injury. Who have COVID? And this large study of actual prevalence, how big is the problem of long COVID in Bangladesh? That I'm going to say a little bit. It's a big medical research, but I'll just give you an outline. Move on, please. This essentially outlines the same point. We can skip this slide actually. Move on. Okay. I'll actually go back to the slide before. Just to say that there was a small survey done primarily, I think, from Uttara, where they tried to understand that is there a problem immediately after, even after people have recovered. And they have found 1 in 5 people have diarrhea and fatigue. So that was a very good suspicion, but the study was small and the survey was not of high research rigor. Move on. So we decided to develop a study which is of high standard so that it will be acceptable to British and American FDA and those kind of policy making bodies with that kind of rigor. And it is a very large study. So this stroke diagram, I mean, those who are not researchers probably don't need to know the details. I'll not go into details. The key point is the large number of patients, almost 14,000 confirmed COVID patients, PCR positive patients from Bangladesh were studied. And that within that, a large number, almost 27%, has mentioned that their life has been affected. Remember, we are focusing only on people who are 12 weeks, 3 months after the recovery of COVID. So 3 months after, 27% of people still have so severe symptoms that their life activity is restricted. It's a serious situation. And then, if we wanted to do not just a survey or their comments, we actually wanted to have a face-to-face interview. So with proper ethics approval, institutional review board approval, a large number of people from Jashore and CRP did the interview, and that confirmed that almost 22% of people actually have the symptoms. And then, if we go through all the symptoms, it's more than 16%. Let's move on. And what are the symptoms in the Bangladeshi population? In Bangladeshi population, it seems fatigue, tiredness, unexplained, inexplicable, too much. That's fatigue seems to be the main problem. But along with fatigue, there are other issues like pain, joint pain, and smell, appetite loss, brain fog, which is sort of memory problem, seems to be the key problem. And again, it has shown in Bangladesh, the man seems to have it less, but when a man has long COVID, they have got too many symptoms. Okay, move on. This is a slide which is quite complicated. It's a quite sophisticated analysis to show that if we see the journey of the COVID itself, that the symptoms are different in first month, and then second to third month, and then after 3 months. So in the first month, when you have COVID, the main issues are cough, fever, breathlessness, headache, and a loss of smell. But once they survive, the problem seems to be very different. And after 12 months, long COVID, after 3 months, fatigue seems to be the key issue, and pain in the musculoskeletal pain in the muscles and joints, and headache seems to be less, and memory problem seems to be becoming more dominant. These are important when you formulate policies, that what are the kinds of problems that you will be facing. So when you are facing a second wave, you need to keep focusing. When you are thinking about post-future, you have to think about this. Move on, please. And a critical point comes up here. All these symptoms, what we call relapse remission, it comes and goes. So think about this fatigue. So for a week or so, fatigue is high, and then suddenly there's no fatigue. Then again, next week, think of this, a young female who may be working in a government factory or in school. If she says that I have symptoms, this comes and goes, a lot of people will not believe that is this a real medical condition. And as a clinician, as a medical doctor, I can tell you the cruelest thing that you can do to a patient is to disbelieve that he or she actually has it. So this is very important to understand that symptoms comes and goes, and it is patient-reported symptom. That is nothing you are going to find by examination. So that is the key message, that we need to believe that this is a real condition and patients are truly disabled, and we need to do something about it. Next slide, please. This simply shows in our study that you are more likely to have this if you are a smoker, if you are a frontline worker, like frontline workers, nurses, doctors, fire service, police. So people who are on the frontline and who already have other medical conditions, but critically young people. So that simply determines that you are more likely to have it, and more likely to have it for very long duration. So this is quite a sophisticated analysis that has been done in different ways to prove this point. Just like this. So salient points from the presentation that I have made so far is that I can't read it from here. That it is a genuine medical condition. Recovery is different to survival. You may have survived COVID, but you still have a new condition. And even if you have mild COVID, you may end up having long COVID. So for Bangladesh, where the first wave was quite mild, long COVID is a real risk and danger. Next slide, please. This is just to illustrate one point, that when we talk about clinical condition, we need to be aware that human beings, individuals, their life experience and the way they describe it is very different. So it's just patient experience within their own mind and their family's mind, so different. So all the people need to know the details. But the point what I'm making is here, all these patients have the same medical condition, same clinical picture, but you can see they're very different when they talk about their life experience. Yeah, so as clinicians, we need to keep a focus on the experience of our patients and their families, not just the clinical diagnosis. Move on, please. And this is just a repeat where the Northern England studies have shown that rural area people who have not required hospitalization, even they have now dramatic sufferings. Next slide. So, a couple of weeks ago, this is the first proposal of how do we tackle this long COVID. This proposal has come within the United Kingdom, and the British government is supporting this. They're thinking about 50 services to support long COVID. Remember, we're talking about 1.1 million people, 11 lakh people. And the proposal is to develop rehabilitation services, multidisciplinary rehabilitation services to address this. So there will be a team with mainly from neurological rehabilitation. You will need physical medicine doctors, you will need occupational therapists, physiotherapists, nurses, neuropsychologists, all working together, keeping the focus on the benefit of the patient and their family in their real life. Move on, please. So, in written, as we proposal is to have this multi-tiered service. It is when you initiate a survey, you have to decide, do you want to do that kind of modeling or do you want to do your modeling? You don't have to follow the British model, you have to develop your own model. Next slide, please. So I'm not going into details of our British system because you have to develop your own. So, and then again, so the summary, the peace loop, that a large number of people are suffering from long COVID. And just one figure I want to look at, that people, 54% of the people are available, have their employment. Even after the government has given funding to the employers so that those patients can work from home. So those support schemes will run out next year. So a lot of these people will become unemployed. So already 46% have become unemployed. It will go even higher. It has a serious societal and economic implications. Next slide, please. So I will go into details. These are the actual protocol when you have the symptoms, various kinds of symptoms, what to do. Next slide, please. This will be relevant for the actual clinicians, doctors, nurses, physiologists who will be doing the work. But the point is, these things are now have been made into a consensus and it's available. Even there are now virtual management training system available free. So if you guys decided that you should learn how to manage fatigue in long COVID, there are now courses available virtually made available by the National Service University. Move on, please. So the way forward is, as far as the British guidance and the European Union is concerned, that comprehensive rehabilitation program is necessary. In Britain, we have come up with a service model, but it requires national coordination. The Department of Health has to oversee and support this, and it will require teamwork of all these professionals, and in particular biomedical engineering and neuropsychology needs to move in. This is an area where this, in my understanding, is yet to develop more. Next slide, please. Someone may ask, what is neurorehabilitation? This is the definition of neurorehabilitation. I will not read this out. Essentially, during the discussion, it may come out. Or shall I read it? Yeah. Neurorehabilitation is a complex medical process of diagnosis, assessment, acute and long-term management of people with complex neurological disabilities, physical, psychological, and mental. It aims to aid recovery from an injury to the nervous system and to retain and compensate for any functional alterations resulting from that illness. The individual is supported to achieve their maximum potential for physical, cognitive, social, and psychological functioning, particularly within the society and quality of living. It is a patient-centered, iterative, goal-focused learning process to optimize the functional recovery, disability management, and adaptation to loss or changes. Move on, please. I will obviously not go into this. This is what are the good essential characteristics of a good rehab service. So it's all well decided and well planned. So it's not that something you have to invent. What you have to do is contextualize to your geography, your population distribution. Yeah, move on. This is just one example that multi-system work. So this is on one of my own patients, and Karen Saunders is working. So this is a patient at the same time working is on improving balance, improving muscle power, improving cardiovascular fitness, particularly when he is standing. So there's a mixture of activities will be going on with medicine, psychology, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, engineering, all these things all of these groups have to work together for the benefit of Richard. It's Richard who is the key. Yeah, not us. Richard is the key. And number 2 key will be Richard's wife. That's the mindset we have to get. Next slide, please. It's just an example that just by changing position and posture, you can improve by stimulating all the 6 common senses are 6 just by changing posture. Now, again, these are very expensive equipment. You can get this equipment made locally, custom made, as well as tailored making. So it is possible to adapt the science into your own country. Move on, please. Next slide. So I will conclude by saying the post-COVID-19 syndrome is a new multi-system, it's a new medical condition. It could be prevented if you could prevent COVID. How do we prevent COVID? Currently, we prevent by wearing masks, washing our hands and our mobile phones, and keeping social distances. And how do we prevent future COVID? By having the vaccines as soon as possible. Or everyone needs to have the vaccine. So that is prevention is much better than trying to handle it. It's not COVID. Yeah, and we need to just and that long COVID is a real multidimensional condition, and in fact negatively in the person's daily abilities to impact on their life and their society and the economy of the country. And treatment of long COVID is an integrated, holistic approach to rehabilitation. That's the way forward. National awareness and coordination is needed, and we must believe the patients. Their symptoms comes and goes, fluctuating condition. We have to believe in these patients, and further research and education is urgently needed. I'll stop there. Thank you for listening.
If there's any question, thanks, Professor Dr. Mohammad Shakir, for giving a very nice informative presentation upon long COVID syndrome, which is the pandemic after pandemic. Now I am requesting to Dr. Imran to show a video upon the practical management of breathlessness due to long COVID by Professor Karen Sundars. Dr. Imran. Very short video, 1 minute 30 seconds.
Hello, my name is Karen and I am a specialist neurological physiotherapist who works in research and education. And today I'm going to talk about one of the most commonly reported long COVID symptoms, breathlessness. Breathlessness can impact negatively on all aspects of daily life. Good, efficient breathing takes place through the nose and is quiet, rhythmical, and relaxed. The diaphragm muscle does 80% of the inspiratory work, and expiration is usually a passive process. With breathlessness and dysfunctional breathing, this can change. Breaths can be short and shallow, with greater use of neck and shoulder muscles, which can contribute to fatigue. Treatment involves a retraining of the breathing pattern and education. Carefully learning how to breathe better can have positive effects on not just the physical symptoms of breathlessness, but also on anxiety and stress. The person should sit in a supported position with arms and shoulders resting. Firstly, check your own breathing pattern. In your mind, count how many seconds it takes to breathe in and then out. The breath out should be longer than the breath in, with a ratio of 1 to 2 for inspiration and expiration. Next, focus on feeling the breath and movement of your chest. Allow the air to come in gently, and then try to gently slow down the breath out. Sometimes closing the eyes can help. The aim is to increase the length of time the breath out takes, because this is connected to the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps the body to relax. Practicing this technique for 5 to 10 minutes regularly every day for about 2 weeks can enable the improvement of breathing and reduce breathlessness. In summary, there is potential for people suffering from long COVID breathlessness to gain improvement of this symptom with the appropriate treatment and advice. Thank you.
Thank you, audience, for watching the nice video from Kadu Santosh. Our respected audience, guests, I think all know that one of our member of parliament is one of the best friends of Bangladesh Physiotherapy Association and physiotherapy professional in Bangladesh. Yes, another important word. So, in this time, we are starting the session 2, discussion session, and in the discussion session, first of all, I would like to request the best person who is our very nearest and very good friend of Bangladesh Physiotherapy Association, Saifuzzaman MP Magura Act. আমাদের সম্মানিত সকলের প্রাণপ্রিয় শেখর ভাইকে আমি কিছু বলার জন্য বিশেষভাবে অনুরোধ করছি।
অত্যন্ত সময় উপযোগী একটি বিষয় নিয়ে আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানটির আয়োজন করেছেন। আমি আয়োজকদেরকে আন্তরিকভাবে কৃতজ্ঞতা এবং ধন্যবাদ জানাই। মূলত আলোচনা করবেন আমাদের আজকের প্রধান অতিথি, গণপ্রজাতন্ত্রী বাংলাদেশ সরকারের মাননীয় শিক্ষা মন্ত্রণালয়ের দায়িত্ব নিয়োজিত মাননীয় মন্ত্রী ডক্টর দীপু মনি এমপি। আর অত্যন্ত বিজ্ঞ আলোচক হিসেবে উপস্থিত আছেন আমাদের অত্যন্ত শ্রদ্ধাভাজন, যিনি তার কর্ম দিয়ে প্রমাণ করেছেন যে ইচ্ছা থাকলে মানুষের পাশে দাঁড়ানো যায়, মানুষের কল্যাণে কাজ করা যায়। আজকে বিশেষ অতিথি ডক্টর ইনামুর রহমান এমপি, গণপ্রজাতন্ত্রী বাংলাদেশ সরকারের মাননীয় ক্রীড়া ও পুনর্বাসন মন্ত্রণালয়ের দায়িত্বে নিয়োজিত। বক্তব্য রাখবেন, উপস্থিত থাকবেন লুকমান হোসেন, স্বাস্থ্য সচিব। আমি মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রীর সহকারী একান্ত সচিব থাকা অবস্থায় তার সঙ্গে কাজ করার সৌভাগ্য হয়েছিল। তারপরে তিনি যখন ময়মনসিংহের জেলা প্রশাসক থেকে শুরু করে খুলনা বিভাগের বিভাগীয় কমিশনার থাকা অবস্থায় তার সঙ্গে আমি অনেক তাদের রাজনৈতিক বিষয়গুলো নিয়ে বিভিন্ন সময় একসাথে কাজ করেছি। তিনিও বলবেন অত্যন্ত পজিটিভ কিছু মানুষ আপনারা সিলেক্ট করেছেন। তো আজকে একটা মানে যেটা আমাদের ডক্টর ইনামুর রহমান সাহেব বলছিলেন যে এইভাবে কিন্তু আমরা আসলে ভাবি না। আমরা কিন্তু আমাদের সামনের উপর দেখতে পাচ্ছি, আমার বাংলা জেলা প্রশাসক তিনি কোভিড-19 আক্রান্ত হয়েছিলেন, তিনি অতি দ্রুতই সুস্থ হয়ে গেছেন, কিন্তু এখনো তার সিঁড়ি ভাঙতে প্রায় 9 মাস আগে প্রথম দিকে এফেক্টেড, এখনো কিন্তু তার সিঁড়ি ভাঙতে কষ্ট হয়, বেশি দূর হাঁটলে হাঁপিয়ে যায়। আমার বড় বোনের হয়েছে, তিনিও কোভিড-19 গত সংসদের উনি সংসদ সদস্য ছিলেন, পানুলালা জলি, আমার বড় বোন, তারও কোভিড-19 তিনি আক্রান্ত হয়েছিলেন। অতি দ্রুত ভালো হয়ে গিয়েছিলেন, ওনার তেমন কোনো সিমটম ছিল না, শুধু গন্ধ পেতেন। এখন মাঝে মাঝে উনি আসলে স্মৃতি কিছুটা হঠাৎ করে ভুলে যান। তো যে বিষয়টি আজকে প্রবন্ধ হিসেবে আমাদের সামনে হাজির করা হয়েছে, অত্যন্ত একটি বিষয়। আমরা আপনাদেরকে আশ্বস্ত করি যে আপনারা এরকম একটি সুন্দর টপিক্সের উপর আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানটি আয়োজন করেছেন। আমরা আমাদের সংশ্লিষ্ট কর্তৃপক্ষের কাছে আমাদের পক্ষ থেকে যাতে আমরা এই লং টার্ম যে এফেক্টিভ কোভিড-19 এইটা রিকভার করবার জন্য যে বিষয়টি আপনারা সামনে এনেছেন, এটা আমরা আমাদের যথাযোগ্য কর্তৃপক্ষের কাছে আপনাদের তুলে ধরবো। এবং আমি বিশেষ করে ইনামুর রহমানের বিষয়ে অনুরোধ করবো, তিনি একটু সরল মানুষ। অনেকে আমরা আছি, আমরা বিভিন্ন জায়গায় অনেক কারণে কথা বলি না, কিন্তু এনাম ভাই তিনি যা বলছেন সেটা বলেন, এবং এই কারণেই অনেকে ওনাকে পছন্দ করেন। আমি ওনাকে অনুরোধ করবো যে এই বিষয়টি নিয়ে বোধহয় আমাদের ভাবার সময় রয়েছে। দুর্ভাগ্যজনক সত্যি আমাদের বাংলাদেশে এই কোভিড-19 যে প্যানিকটা ছিল, প্যান্ডামিক যেটা আমরা বলি, সেটা কিন্তু আমার প্রথম দিকে ছিল, এখন কিন্তু প্যান্ডামিকটা আমাদের মধ্যে নয়, একেবারে। আমরা যারা বলা যায় যে একটু উঁচু লেভেলে চলাফেরা করি, তাদের ভিতরে কিছু প্যান্ডামিক আছে, কিন্তু যারা রোড লেভেলে, তাদের ভিতর মিনিমাম প্যান্ডামিক নেই। আপনারা যদি গ্রামে যান, দেখবেন যে 99% এর মুখে মাস্ক নাই, তারা কোনো স্বাস্থ্যবিধি মানে না, এবং তারা যেন কেন মনে করে যে এটা আমাদের মতো মানুষের রোগ, এটা তাদেরকে ছোবে না, যেটা আমাদের জন্য খুবই আশঙ্কা বিষয়। আমি এনামের সাথে বসে আলোচনা করছিলাম যে ইন্ডিয়ায় যে বিষয়টি ওরা সামাল দিতে পারে নাই, আমরা তার অত্যন্ত নিকটবর্তী একটি দেশ। আমাদের দেশে আল্লাহ এখন পর্যন্ত ভালো রেখেছেন, কিন্তু কতক্ষণ ভালো থাকবে এটা বলা মুশকিল। ভারতের স্টেটটা যদি কোনোভাবে আমাদের দেশে চলে আসে, তাহলে সেটা কিন্তু সামাল দেওয়া আমাদের জন্য কঠিন। এই কারণেই আমাদের মাননীয় শিক্ষামন্ত্রী, আমাদের বিশেষ করে স্বাস্থ্য সচিব এবং ইনাম ভাইকে মন্ত্রী পরিষদের সদস্য হিসেবে আমি আছেন, আর অনুরোধ করবো যে আল্লাহ তাআলা কোনোভাবে ঘটাতে আমাদের অন্তপক্ষে যতখানি প্রতিরোধ করা দরকার, এই জন্য পর্যাপ্ত ব্যবস্থা নেওয়া উচিত। আরেকটি বিষয় আমি বলি যে মাঝে মাঝে ফিজিওথেরাপিতে একটু আমাদের মাঝে আমাদের অত্যন্ত শ্রদ্ধাভাজন বাংলাদেশ ছাত্রলীগের সাবেক সভাপতি, বাংলাদেশ আওয়ামী লীগের সাবেক স্বাস্থ্য বিষয়ক সম্পাদক, আমাদের বিএমএর সভাপতি, সাবেক সংসদ সদস্য ডক্টর মোস্তফা জামাল মৌলভী সাহেব আমাদের উপস্থিত হয়েছেন। আমি আমাদের পক্ষ থেকে তাকে আন্তরিকভাবে ধন্যবাদ জানাই। তো যে কথা বলছিলাম যে ফিজিওথেরাপিস্টরা তাদের অধিকারের জন্য প্রায় তাদের আন্দোলন করতে হয়, তাদের মনের ব্যথা নিয়ে বিভিন্ন জায়গায় কথা বলতে হয়। আমি যেটা মনে করি যে ফিজিওথেরাপি যে এটা আমাদের সমাজের জন্য অত্যন্ত জরুরি একটি সেবা। ডাক্তার বা এই স্বাস্থ্য ক্ষেত্রে ফিজিওথেরাপিস্টদের অবদানটা কিন্তু কোনো অংশে কম না, এবং আজকে আধুনিক বিশ্ব চিন্তা চেতনায় ফিজিক্যাল মেডিসিন এটা একটি অত্যন্ত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ অংশ। তো এই কারণে আমাদের বোধহয় ভাবার সময় হয়েছে যে আমাদের ডাক্তারদেরকে সহযোগিতা করবার জন্য বা ট্রিটমেন্টের সহযোগিতা করবার জন্য আনুষঙ্গিক জেলায় একটু বলি আমার বৃত্ত অভিজ্ঞতার কথা। আমার মাগুরা জেলায় কোনো কি বলে আপনার অপারেশন করার জন্য যে অর্গানের যে ডাক্তার অ্যানেস্থেশিয়া, আমার মাগুরায় নেই। দিনের পর দিন আমাদের এইটা অসুবিধার কারণে আমরা আমাদের অপারেশন গুলো করতে পারি। শুধু ডাক্তার যদি আমরা তৈরি করে ছেড়ে দিই, তাহলে কিন্তু আমাদের স্বাস্থ্য ব্যবস্থাটা পূর্ণাঙ্গ রূপ চিত্রায়িত হবে না। এই কারণে আমাদের নার্স ডাক্তার, যেটা আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী ইতিমধ্যেই নার্সিং পেশাটাকে তিনি অনেকটা ডেভেলপ করেছেন। এখন আমরা ফার্স্ট ক্লাস অনার্স করাচ্ছি, ফার্স্ট ক্লাস দিচ্ছি। তেমনি আমরা যদি প্রত্যেকটি বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে আমরা ফিজিওথেরাপিদের জন্য অনার্স কোর্স চালু করি, তাহলে কিন্তু আমার মনে হয় যে আমাদের এই সমস্যা থেকে আমরা বের হয়ে আসতে পারবো। পাশাপাশি আমরা জানি যে আমাদের বিভিন্ন জেলায় আমাদের সমাজ কল্যাণের মাধ্যমে নিয়োগ দেওয়া আছে, কিন্তু তাদের চাকরির নিশ্চয়তা নেই। চাকরির নিশ্চয়তা না থাকলে একটা পর্যায়ে আসলে মানুষ হতাশ হয়ে পড়ে। তা আমার মনে হয় যে আমি আজকের এই সেমিনার থেকে আমি আমাদের স্বাস্থ্য সচিব লোকমান করিম কামাল এবং আমাদের ইনাম ভাইকে আমি অনুরোধ করবো, এবং আমি আমাদের জালাল ভাই আমাদের মেডিকেল সেক্টরে আমরা মনে করি যে আমাদের অভিভাবক, আমি তাকে অনুরোধ করবো এই বিষয়টি একটি নজর দিয়ে রাজস্ব খাতে এটাকে ট্রান্সফার করা যায় কিনা। সবকিছু নিয়েই পূর্ণাঙ্গ রূপ ধারণ করে। কোনো কিছু একটি হাত কিন্তু সব করতে পারবে না, আমার পা লাগবে, মাথা লাগবে, চোখ লাগবে। তো কোনটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট বেশি, এটা যদি আমরা বাঁচতে যাই তাহলে কিন্তু আমরা বুঝবো আমাদের সবটা অঙ্গকে আমাদের সচল রাখতে হবে। আর যেহেতু আমাদের সবকিছু নিয়েই কমপ্লিট একটি স্বাস্থ্য ব্যবস্থা গড়ে তুলতে হবে এবং মানুষকে সর্বোচ্চ স্বাস্থ্য সেবাটা নিশ্চিত করতে হবে, এই জন্য আমার মনে হয় যে আমাদের সেক্টর অনুযায়ী আমাদের যারা আমাদের সহযোগিতা করে যাচ্ছেন, মানুষকে কমফোর্ট করার চেষ্টা করছেন, তাদের মূল সমস্যাগুলো বের করে সকলকে যার যার প্রাপ্যটুকু আমাদের বুঝিয়ে দেওয়ার সময় হয়েছে। কারণ এখন সেই বাংলাদেশ এখন আর নেই। জননেত্রী শেখ হাসিনার নেতৃত্বে আজকে বাংলাদেশ অনেক উন্নত, পৃথিবীর বিভিন্ন দেশ উন্নত বিশ্বগুলো একটি সময় হাল ছেড়ে দিয়েছিল। এই কোভিড-19 আমরা দেখেছিলাম কত অসহায় ইতালি, জার্মানের মতো তাদের সরকার প্রধানরা আমরা বলতে দেখেছি যে আমরা আকাশের দিকে তাকিয়ে আছি, আমাদের কিছু করার নাই, কিন্তু আমরা কিন্তু হাল ছাড়ি নাই। সুতরাং জননেত্রী শেখ হাসিনার নেতৃত্বে এই বাংলাদেশ অত্যন্ত সামর্থ্যশালী, এই বাংলাদেশ অত্যন্ত শক্তিশালী, এই বাংলাদেশের অর্থনীতি এখন অনেক শক্তিশালী। এই কারণেই আমাদের মনে হয় যে এই ছোট ছোট বিষয়গুলো আমরা যদি সমস্যার সমাধান করতে পারি, তাহলেই আমরা একটি পূর্ণাঙ্গ স্বাস্থ্য ব্যবস্থা আমাদের মানুষদেরকে দিতে পারবো এবং এই ক্ষেত্রে আমরা সফল হতে পারবো। এই কথাটুকু বলে আমাকে এর আগেও বিভিন্ন অনুষ্ঠানে দাওয়াত দিয়েছেন, আজকে দাওয়াত দিয়েছেন, আমি এই অনুষ্ঠানের আয়োজকদেরকে কৃতজ্ঞতার সাথে ধন্যবাদ জানাচ্ছি। বিশেষ করে আমার অত্যন্ত শ্রদ্ধাভাজন দাদা শুভদা, আমার অত্যন্ত সুরেশ মানুষ, আমার নিজের এলাকায় ওনার বাড়ি, আমরা সবাই তাকে তার ব্যবহার, তার বিভিন্ন কর্মকাণ্ডে সবাই তাকে আমরা পছন্দ করি। তো তাকেও আমি আমার পক্ষ থেকে কৃতজ্ঞতা জানিয়ে আপনাদের সকলের শুভ কামনা জানিয়ে ঈদুল ফিতরের অগ্রিম শুভেচ্ছা জানিয়ে আমি আমার বক্তব্য শেষ করছি। সবাই ভালো থাকবেন। জয় বাংলা, জয় বঙ্গবন্ধু, বাংলাদেশ চিরজীবী।
Thanks, Honorable Member of Parliament, Saiful MP, Magura Act. Dear audience, in this time, I would like to tell something. Dr. Mashur Rahman Khoshru, the Department of Rehabilitation, Bangladesh Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Medical University. Sir.
Respected chair of the session, honorable chief guest, special guest, member of the parliament from Bangladesh and UK also, president of Bangladesh Medical Association, distinguished guests, the organizers. I feel very privileged that I could be invited here to share my ideas regarding non-COVID. I must congratulate Professor M. Shatter that he covered major part of the non-COVID, which is very, very important, and it's a high time to keep concentration on that. Besides this, As we know that in non-COVID, most of the organs of our body can be affected. And yes, COVID is not a single disease nowadays. Now it's not a syndrome. And I can recall my memory that this long COVID term was filed in September 2020. But the age of the pandemic is only 8 to 9 months. And very recent days, we have a systematic review that has been conducted in our university, that is Bangladesh Medical University, in collaboration with University of Twente, Netherlands. And in that case, I was also privileged that I act as the principal investigator, and I found that about 35% of the population had fatigue, of them 21% had malaria, and 50% had joint pain. In our experience, that we are being provided assistance in our university hospital, that we got several patients having hip involvement without finding other causes that can be explained. And the history of this is a viral induced, that is virus induced segment deposits in the cerebral joints. And we found that the muscle joint, that means curative virus is raised as high as 42,000 even. So we have to concentrate not only the lung, not only the heart, not only the brain, but we have to concentrate on the bone and joint as well. At the same time, I'd like to recall another thing is that in April 2020, when the pandemic is just spreading across the globe, and another issue was raised up, that's depression. And it said that depression would be the, or psychological pandemic would be the second one that has to face this one. And today, I can say that long COVID could be, that long COVID can be the second pandemic that comes after this SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, which covers not only the organic disease as well as the psychological disease. So we have to concentrate on the mind as well. And very recent cross-section studies that has been conducted in our university in a telephonic survey, we found about 79% population with controlled SARS-CoV-2 positive had suffered from depression on PH9 scale. So then I like to say that we have to work together so that we can help the people and help our population. So that we should start a that can enhance our health service across the globe. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mashur Rahman. This is a discussion session upon COVID, long COVID syndrome and rehabilitation. In this time, I would like to request Executive Member, Bangladesh Rehabilitation Council, Dr. Shamin Ahmed, to tell about what's the situation of rehabilitation, because not only discussion, we should go forward. So what's the situation of Rehabilitation Council to serve the people? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Firoz. Actually, this is my pleasure to be here with all of you, and a special pleasure to be here with a special moment, with a special topic, and this is the really time demand and work demand topic. So special thanks to the people who organized such type of important topic and just having a very important discussion. Me, the member of executive body of Bangladesh Rehabilitation Council, and you know that Bangladesh Rehabilitation Council has been working after being formed with the rehabilitation process, the system in Bangladesh. But nowadays, you know that this is the time of pandemic. Here, our honorable presenter today was presented here. You know just only one thing. This is the pandemic, but what that is a long COVID. So it mentioned that long COVID pandemic, not only COVID pandemic. So here, our honorable chief guest, our honorable minister, Dr. Vipul Modi, Minister of Education, and here present our special guest, you know that who is always with us, our honorable Sir Dr. Amur Rahman, is the State Minister of Ministry of Disaster Management and Relief, and other distinguished guests, honorable VCs, and today's presenters, and who those are attending with us so online, and especially our valuable trainer and other distinguished guests. Assalamu alaikum. Just one thing, you already have known that the rehabilitation, my dear friends, time is very short, and dear colleagues, actually there is no other alternative to have the service rehabilitation. But I would like to request who those are here, policy makers, please, not only on the discussion table, then and then you should take the proper steps. That you know, our Prime Minister, with his iron leadership, who are going forward and facing this situation, that she is always telling that Jivan or Jivika. My question is there, and my request is there on behalf of our DRC. If we want to maintain Jivan or Jivika, life and livelihood, then there is no other alternatives with having this rehabilitation for long COVID. So this is the proper time to take the policy. So my request to whoever the policy maker here, please take the proper initiative just now, how we can implement this procedure. Thank you very much. With a very good afternoon, and thank you very much again.
Thank you, Dr. Shamil Ahmed. You know, this is the Ramadan, so time is very short. I am requesting all of our guests just to think about it. One for revolution, the leader and the leader of the Bangladesh Medical Association. He has some another work with the other people, so that he would like to give his speech now. So I am requesting Dr. Mustafa Jalal Mahmoudin sir, President Bangladesh Medical Association, to tell something about long COVID syndrome and today's issue. Sir.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম। আজকে এই পর্যন্ত বিকেলে আমি এসেছিলাম আপনাদের এই অনুষ্ঠানে, বাংলাদেশ ফিজিওথেরাপিস্ট অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের কর্তৃক আয়োজিত এই অনুষ্ঠানে। আজকে এই অনুষ্ঠানে শ্রদ্ধেয় সভাপতি, সম্মানিত অতিথিবৃন্দ এবং ভার্চুয়ালে আছেন আমাদের মাননীয় শিক্ষামন্ত্রী জনাব দীপুমণি সহ আমাদের শ্রদ্ধেয় ফিজিওথেরাপিস্ট ভাই বোনেরা। মাহে রমজান চলছে। আজকে এই মাহে রমজানের শেষ প্রান্তে আমরা দাঁড়িয়ে। আজকে বাংলাদেশে প্যান্ডামিকের কারণে, কোভিড-19 এর কারণে আজকে আমরা অনেক অবস্থানে একটি পর্যায়ে দাঁড়িয়ে আছি। এই কোভিড-19 কি জিনিস, এই কোভিড-19 কিভাবে আমরা ফেস করব, আমরা কিন্তু বুঝতে পারি না, আমরা কিন্তু জানতে পারি না। আমরা কেন দুনিয়ার সবচেয়ে শ্রেষ্ঠ দেশ আমেরিকা বলেন, জাপান বলেন, ব্রিটেন বলেন, ফ্রান্স বলেন, রাশিয়া বলেন, স্পেন বলেন, এমনকি আমাদের পার্শ্ববর্তী দেশ ভারত বলেন, আমরা যাদের সাথে যুদ্ধ করেছি সে পাকিস্তানিদের কথাই বলেন, কেউ এই প্যান্ডামিকের থেকে রেহাই পায়নি। এশিয়ার এই দ্বার প্রান্তের এই বাংলাদেশ, আমাদের আজকের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী বঙ্গবন্ধু কন্যা শেখ হাসিনার বলিষ্ঠ নেতৃত্বে, তার নিজের মনিটরিং এর কারণে, আন্তর্জাতিক বিশ্বে তার পরিচয়ের কারণে তিনি বাংলাদেশকে এই কোভিড-19 এর একটি পর্যায়ে উন্নতি করেছেন। আমরা যদি প্রথম ফেজের কথা চিন্তা করি, প্রথম ফেজে কিন্তু আমরা ভালো ছিল, আমাদের শনাক্ত সংখ্যা কমে এসেছিল একেবারে, মৃত্যুর সংখ্যা অনেক কমে এসেছে। কিন্তু দুর্ভাগ্যজনক হলো সত্য, আমাদের নিজেদের কারণে কিন্তু আমরা সেই পর্যায়টা ধরে রাখতে পারিনি। নিজের কারণে বলতে কি বোঝায়? নিজের কারণে বলতে বোঝায় আমাদের বাংলাদেশের মানুষ আমরা কিন্তু মনে করেছি প্যান্ডেমিক আমাদের থেকে চলে গেছে। আমরা কক্সবাজার বাজারে আমার ফ্যামিলি নিয়ে, আমার বাচ্চা কাচ্চা নিয়ে আমি ভ্রমণ করছি। আমাদের গাড়ি ঘোড়া এমন ভাবে চলছে মনে হচ্ছে যেন আমরা আগের অবস্থানে বিরাজ করছি। আমরা ট্রেনে বলেন, লঞ্চে বলেন, স্টিমারে বলেন, সেই ফেরিতে বলেন, লক্ষ লক্ষ মানুষ আমরা আমাদের দেশের বাড়িতে যাচ্ছি ঈদ করতে, আনন্দ করতে, ফুর্তি করতে। কিন্তু এই আনন্দ ফুর্তি আমাদের আজকে কাল হয়ে দাঁড়িয়েছে। এই কালের কারণে কিন্তু আমরা দ্বিতীয় ফেজে উপস্থিত হয়েছিলাম। আর এই দ্বিতীয় ফেজ আসার আগে আমার মনে আছে আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী ভার্চুয়ালে এবং যাদের সাথে কথা বলে তাদের সাথে টেলিফোনে বারবার তিনি একটি কথা বলেছেন। তিনি বলেছেন এই দ্বিতীয় ফেজে তোমাদের অনেক কষ্ট হবে, এই দ্বিতীয় ফেজ সেট করার জন্য প্রতিহত করার জন্য তোমরা এখন থেকে কাজে নেমে যাও। আমরা মন্ত্রণালয়, স্বাস্থ্যমন্ত্রী সহ মন্ত্রণালয় সহ অন্যান্য মন্ত্রণালয়ের সাথে কথা বলে আমরা এই দ্বিতীয় ফেজ পরিত্রাণ পাওয়ার জন্য আমরা চেষ্টা করছি। কিন্তু দ্বিতীয় ফেজের এই করোনার আক্রমণে আমরা কিন্তু অনেক কষ্ট করেছি। আল্লাহর রহমতে আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী ধাপে ধাপে এই লকডাউনের ভেতরেও তিনি কাজ করে যাচ্ছেন। এটি তো সত্য, জীবনের সাথে জীবিকার একটি সম্পর্ক। সেই কারণে তিনি জীবনকেও যেভাবে বাজি রেখে মানুষকে বাঁচাবার জন্য চেষ্টা করছে, আর জীবিকার জন্য ছোট্ট মানুষেরা যারা জীবিকা নির্ভর করে বেঁচে আছে তাদের জন্য, আর আন্তর্জাতিক বিশ্বে আমাদের বাংলাদেশের জীবিকার কারণে ভাবমূর্তি ধরে রাখার জন্য গার্মেন্টস বলেন, ফার্মাসিউটিক্যাল কোম্পানি বলেন, এগুলা খোলা রেখে তিনি চেষ্টা করেছেন যাতে আমরা অভিষ্ট লক্ষ্যে পৌঁছতে পারি। আজকের প্রেক্ষাপটটা সেই একই পর্যায়ে চলছে। তবে আমি সেদিন মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী কথা বলেছিলাম। আমি বলছিলাম, মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী, আপনার এই চিন্তাধারার সাথে আমরা একমত পোষণ করি। তারপরেও আপনি একটু ভেবে দেখবেন, জেলা পর্যায়ে যেসব জেলাতে করোনার আক্রান্তের সংখ্যা কম, যেখানে শনাক্তের সংখ্যা কম, যেখানে মৃত্যুর সংখ্যা কম, সেখানে যদি আপনি ভালো মতো আপনার জীবিকার জন্য কাজ করেন, আর যেখানে আক্রমণ সংখ্যা বেশি, শনাক্তের সংখ্যা বেশি, মৃত্যুর সংখ্যা বেশি, সেখানে আপনি লকডাউনের ব্যবস্থা করে মানুষকে সাহায্য সহযোগিতা করেন। অবশ্য আমি দেখেছি মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী তার জীবন এবং মানসিকতায় তিনি কিন্তু তার কাজগুলা ঠিক মতো করে যাচ্ছেন। আজকে প্রেক্ষাপটে বলুন যে আমি দেখেছি, আপনারা টেলিভিশনে দেখেছেন, আমাদের কোন মন্ত্রণালয়, কোন নেতা কর্মীরা, আমাদের জাতীয় সংগঠন বাংলাদেশ আওয়ামী লীগ সহ অন্যান্য আমাদের সংগঠনগুলা তারা কিন্তু মানুষের সেবা দিয়ে যাচ্ছে। আমি নিজেও রাত্রে, আমাদের একটি সংগঠন আছে, সেই সংগঠনের পক্ষ থেকে আমরা রাত্রে বিভিন্ন ঢাকা শহরে বিভিন্ন জায়গায় গিয়ে তাদের খাদ্য বিতরণ করে আসছি। এবং এরকম অনেক সংগঠন আছে তারাও এই কাজগুলো করে যাচ্ছে। মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী ইতিমধ্যে কয়েক লক্ষ মানুষের তিনি সাহায্যের জন্য অনলাইনে টাকা দিচ্ছেন, উনিও চেষ্টা করে যাচ্ছেন। তবে আমি মনে করি আজকের প্রেক্ষাপটে যে অবস্থার সৃষ্টি হয়েছে, শনাক্ত সংখ্যা একটু কমে আসছে, মৃত্যুর সংখ্যা কমে আসছে, কিন্তু তার ভেতর দিয়েও আমাদের মনে রাখতে হবে আমরা যাতে এটাকে শক্তভাবে যাতে ফেস করতে পারি, সেই মানসিকতায় আমাদের এগিয়ে যেতে হবে। আর আজকের প্রেক্ষাপটে আমি বলতে চাচ্ছি যে আমাদের এই কোভিড-19 রোগীর সেবা দেওয়ার জন্য আমাদের সরকার হাসপাতালগুলোতে যেভাবে কাজ করছেন, অক্সিজেন বলেন, সকল সেক্টরে হাসপাতালে বেডের সংখ্যা বলেন, সকল সেক্টরে সরকারের পক্ষ থেকে যেমন উন্নতি হচ্ছে, আমি মনে করি আপনাদের ফিজিওথেরাপি অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের ব্যাপারটাও আমাদের নজরে আনা দরকার, সরকারের চিন্তা করা দরকার। যেমন আমি মনে করি যে আজকে যেমন আমরা আমাদের অনেক জুনিয়র ডাক্তার, আমাদের মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রী প্রায় 10,000 নবীন চিকিৎসকদের সরকারি চাকরি দিয়ে অবস্থার সৃষ্টি করেছে, যাতে আমরা কাজগুলো জনগণকে সেবা করতে পারি। আর এই কোভিড-19 আমরা আমাদের সকল নবীন চিকিৎসকদের কাজে লাগিয়ে আজকে আমরা অভিষ্ট লক্ষ্যে পৌঁছানোর জন্য যেমন চেষ্টা করছি। আপনার ফিজিওথেরাপি অ্যাসোসিয়েশনে আমাদের সরকার যদি এটা নতুন করে চিন্তা করেন, সরকার যদি তাদের নিজের হাতে নিয়ে এই সংগঠনের এই ফিজিওথেরাপি ডাক্তারদের জন্য কাজ করেন, তাহলে নিশ্চয় আপনারাও উপকৃত হবেন। আমি আগে আমাদের তরুণ নেতা, আমাদের মেম্বার অফ পার্লামেন্ট খসরু শেখর যে কথাগুলো বলছে, সেই কথাগুলো ভেতর দিয়ে আমরা কিন্তু আমি মনে করি সরকারের যেমন চিন্তা করা উচিত, আমাদের ব্যাপারে নতুন কিছু চিন্তা করা। আমার ধারণা হচ্ছে যে আপনাদের সামনে আরো অনেক বক্তা আছে, আরো অনেকে বক্তব্য রাখেন, আমি সেদিক দিয়ে যাবো না। আজকে অনুষ্ঠানে আমাকে নিমন্ত্রণ করার জন্য আমি কৃতজ্ঞতা জ্ঞাপন করছি এবং আগামী দিনে আপনাদের ফিজিওথেরাপি অ্যাসোসিয়েশনের যে সকল কাজগুলো আছে, আমি সেই কাজগুলো নিজের মনে করে আমি মন্ত্রণালয় বলেন, মন্ত্রী বলেন, সচিব বলেন, এমনকি প্যান্ডেমিক যে অবস্থাটা যদি আরো সুদৃঢ় হয়, ভালো হয়, তখন আমি মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রীর সাথে সাক্ষাৎ করব। আমি তারপরে বলবো যে আমাদের আজকের অনুষ্ঠানে যিনি প্রধান অতিথি, নিশ্চয়ই ভার্চুয়ালি শুনছেন, উনিও আমাদের প্রফেশনের একজন। উনিও যদিও শিক্ষামন্ত্রীর দায়িত্ব পালন করেন, আমাদের স্বাস্থ্যমন্ত্রী মন্ত্রণালয় এবং আমাদের যেহেতু ডাক্তার, উনি নিজেও এই কথাগুলো বলেন এবং আমাদের প্রধানমন্ত্রী বলবেন। আর আমাদের আরেকজন মন্ত্রী মহোদয় এখানে বসা আছেন, উনি বক্তব্য রাখবেন। উনি আমাদের প্রফেশনের একজন মানুষ, উনি যেমন আমাদের প্রফেশনের বদলে কাজ করেন। আমি বলবো আপনার ফিজিওথেরাপিস্টদের ব্যাপারে উনিও মন্ত্রী মহোদয়ের সাথে যখনই কথা হয়, মাননীয় প্রধানমন্ত্রীর সাথে যখনই ওনার দেখা হয়, নিশ্চয়ই উনিও আপনাদের কথা বলে আপনাদেরকে অভিষ্ট আজকে যেহেতু মায়ের রমজান চলছে, কিছুক্ষণ পরে ইফতারের আয়োজন হবে। আমি আপনাদের এই অনুষ্ঠানে আসতে পেরে ধন্য মনে করছি। আগামী দিনে সকল কাজে আপনাদের সাথে কাজে কাজ মিলিয়ে কাজ করবো, এই আশাবাদ ব্যক্ত করে আপনাদের সবাইকে সালাম জানিয়ে আমার সংক্ষিপ্ত কথা এখানেই শেষ করলাম। আপনারা ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন। আপনাদের জয় হোক, জয় বাংলা, জয় বঙ্গবন্ধু, বাংলাদেশ চিরজীবী হোক।
ধন্যবাদ ডক্টর মোস্তাফিজুর মহিউদ্দিন স্যার। আমরা আগেই বলেছিলাম যে ইফতারের সময় খুবই সন্নিকটে, আমাদের অনেক গেস্ট আছে। এ পর্যায়ে আমি খুব সংক্ষেপে বক্তৃতা দেওয়ার জন্য বিশেষ অনুরোধ করব সিআরপি এক্সিকিউটিভ ডাইরেক্টর প্রফেসর ডক্টর মোহাম্মদ সোহরাব হোসেন। প্রফেসর ডক্টর মোহাম্মদ সোহরাব হোসেন স্যার, আমি খুব সংক্ষেপে সবাইকে কথা বলার জন্য অনুরোধ করব।
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I understand this is very short time, so I will not take more than 3 minutes. Distinguished guests, dignitaries who joined the program today on long COVID, the new pandemic, rehabilitation as the way forward. I believe this is an important topic to discuss, and the discussion today from the scientific persons is very important, valuable, and I learned a lot from this seminar. CRP, the Center for the Rehabilitation of the Paralyzed, is working for people with disability in the field of rehabilitation in Bangladesh. And we have a multidisciplinary team working here with physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech therapists, and medical practitioners. And the topic today, the long pandemic, or chronic pandemic, or subacute pandemic, whatever, this is another threat for us, not only for Bangladesh, but for the global. So we need to work together, as we understood from the team, that in Bangladesh, in our capacity, But in government sector, we do not have enough post to work with the multidisciplinary team. So I recommend that the equipment of physical therapists in the field of health services will help a lot to serve the post-COVID rehabilitation. And also, the capacity we have in Bangladesh, the medical attention, and also physical therapy and occupational therapy can take this need forward along with the other country. This may not be the similar as Dr. Shakti said, the condition national health services in UK may not be the similar to national health services in Bangladesh. So we need to think what is our capacity. I'm very happy to hear that Honorable Minister of Education joined us today as the chief guest. Respected Dr. David Taylor, Founder and Coordination of join us, and our Vice Chancellor of the University of Joshua, Vigan and Vishwavidyalaya also join us, and so many other guests. Trying to respect to all of you, all of the knowledgeable persons joined here today, and we hope that we can go forward together with the team and decision today. Let's develop a model of care for Bangladesh to serve the post-COVID-19 survivors, the post-COVID-19 patients, so they get enough service. And let's ensure they have enough access to the health care. Thank you, Adi. Thank you very much. As I say, we also need to do some research. As we see today, that from the scientific investigation, from the research, we learned a lot from the presenters from abroad, also presenters from here. So with the Joshua Vigan and the PVC, that also working with the CRP and also Bangladesh Physical Therapy Association as a partner with the research. So it will be good that we learn together, we develop the physical therapy department, education, like the Joshua Scientific University to other university as a model. Thank you very much. I said I will not take more than 3 minutes, but I'm sorry I progress. I have taken. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saurabh. Our session 1 was on time, session 2 we are running late. So it's now 5:27. In 23 minutes, we will have to stop this session for going to the chief guest and House of Lords. So only 23 minutes left. I think we'll have to finish in that. So I will request all the other panel members to actually say only a few words, because in 23 minutes time, we have our chief guest who have been waiting for 3 hours now to join. So very quickly, Dr. Dipal Odhikari, cardiologist from BSMMU, if you could just say a few words quickly, thanks. Respected Chair, the chief guest of this hybrid seminar or webinar, Honorable Minister of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, Ministry of Education, Dr. Deepu Moni, Honorable State Minister of Disaster Management and Relief, Dr. Inamur Rahman, Honorable Deputy Speaker of the House, Bangladesh Samsad, Advocate Fadla Mia, Honorable Baroness Paula Mandirauddin, Professor Karen Taylor, Professor A.K.M. Musharraf Hussain, the Provost of Bangladesh Sheikh Mujib Medical University, and other dignitaries and the audience in front of me. Actually, this is a very timely and hybrid session in terms of presence and also the participants. In presence, there will be some online guests and some in person, and in nature of the webinar, which is not fully academic but also with some flavor of
policy making. And I am here for the interest of this chair of this session, Professor M. Shakil. And I will not take much time because it was my opinion that some policy level leaders must present today. So we can exchange our views. We have a tremendous session earlier where Professor Trisa and Professor Shakil delivered nice deliberations. Now what I am trying to say that we must work with hands, with science and also with politics, because politicians are the essence and the leaders of the state and the world. And today in this village of globalization, we have to work hand with hands, because there are some participations from the first world who can extend their kind hands of technology and budgets for people like third world countries. So I'm very much blessed to say something in this gathering. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor Shakil.
Thanks, Dr. Dipom. I can see from on the screen that our Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Dr. Associate India, Honorable Deputy Speaker, has joined. To save time, I'm going to take an executive decision. I would like Baroness Manjila Uddin to go next, because it seems there may be a bit more time needed here. So it is an honor and privilege to have someone from House of Lords. Baroness Uddin, please. You may have to unmute yourself first.
Thank you, Dr. Shakil. Thank you, Dr. Kobe. Honorable Deputy Speaker, Dr. Emmanuel Rahman, most Honorable Dr. Dixmoni, most distinguished panel members and honorable participants. I thank the organizers for this timely conference and discussion on the many serious global challenges we are facing today in managing the COVID pandemic. Despite the evident success of UK vaccination programs, we are an injured nation, having lost nearly 130,000 of our citizens, causing untold grief and suffering to their families and loved ones. So let me take a moment to honor and remember all those who have succumbed to this deadly disease in every corner of our world. I would like to convey my sincere condolences to all families affected by COVID. India too is in our prayers, and I believe therefore sincerely that we are not safe until all people of the world are made safe. It is worth noting as we speak, the UK government has just stated that we have detected more than 40 clusters of Indian variant of the disease B1617 found in our schools, care homes, and places of worship. And we are on the verge of declaring a major concerns. And there is a new push, therefore, for localized testing in many communities. Therefore, given that infections may continue to rise, albeit may not be as deadly, the attention to service development for long COVID will remain restrained. I appreciate all your dedication and your impressive presentations of the work. I'm not on the front line, and I cannot imagine the pressures on you as a member of 24 years, directly engaged, contributing to national parliament. I have never felt more helpless and more incompetent as COVID has rampaged our country and our world. You will be aware that Bangladeshi population, amongst others of minority heritage, have experienced disproportionate deaths and infections. Alongside my colleagues in the House, has been diligently trying to influence government policy and its program to ensure help and support reaches all our communities, regardless of who they are. It has been difficult to get our ministers acknowledging any disparities initially and later about the consequences of those surviving long COVID also needing attention, particularly the effect on young people and children. However, I'm pleased to say that UK government has made progress in addressing needs of those who are experiencing long COVID symptoms, with 69 specialist clinics being in operational, as well as 18 million for the purpose of research allocated. I'm thankful to Professor Grinhala and her team, and indeed indebted to Dr. Shakir and his outstanding team work, and hope that Dr. Dipumuni and other leaders will benefit from the research they have presented. I assume the magnificent Herculean collaboration which gave birth to the vaccine may also be required to full research as well as need for developing services for the many effects, different aspects of the long COVID. My own family has suffered long COVID and some subsequent symptoms of long COVID, including my 8-year-old grandson. One of the most healthiest child has now asthma. Therefore, I am indeed honored to be invited to address this august gathering, particularly in light of the evidence of the impact of the long COVID, which is causing deep damage in the aftermath of the disease for many individuals who have escaped death and have survived COVID and their families. In the UK, as it's been stated, there are around 1.1 million. Treatment and rehabilitation centers are responding to the varieties of complications and patients that are experiencing. I am concerned that there seems to be high prevalence of long COVID amongst young women and young people, and I agree with some of the professionals that there are underreporting within many communities. The global pandemic has been equated to fighting wars in our country, and we now know globally we are not good at management of post-war scenario. I pray that this battle will remain in all our government's focus on recovery and rehabilitation in fighting this disease. The world of medicine and research will need to be a collective force for good to battle this set of pandemic to prevent further pain and suffering of people. I welcome wholeheartedly the work led by Dr. Shakir and the team of specialists from 6 countries who have conducted this large study to estimate the size of the upcoming medical and health challenge of long COVID to Bangladesh, and hope that Bangladesh will also benefit from the outcome of Professor Grinhala's work in treatment and management of long COVID. I'm delighted to be sharing this platform with so many eminent professionals, members of parliament, the members of Bangladesh Parliament, Dr. Valerie from CRP, Bangladesh Medical Association, Professor Karen and Laurie from the UK and US team, and warmly thank Honourable Minister Dr. Dipumuni, MP, for lending her support to this debate at this early development phase of our collective response to long COVID. Finally, throughout this pandemic, we have witnessed the best of humanity, greatest gifts of kindness and generosity